Reb Noson in Likutei Halachos bases each one of his lessons on one of Rebbe Nachman's lessons. So it's very challenging for someone, for example, to sit down and learn Likutei Halachos without having first learned the Torah on which that halacha is being based. But once you have learned that halacha, as we have, Baruch Hashem, then you can understand the main point that the Reb Noson is highlighting from the Rebbe Nachman's lesson, and how he is using that to incredibly enhance some aspect of halacha. So that's just a little background. If anybody has not listened to the shiurim or the presentations on the Tinyana Bays from last semester, I recommend that you do that, but I will do my best to bridge the gap. And the Noson always starts out, or usually always starts out, with an explanation of the Torah on which the halacha is based, so that you have an understanding of what parts he's going to be focusing on. So let's get started. We're starting tonight with Choshen Mishpat, Hilchos Prikavit Utiina, and it's halacha Daled, halacha 4. Prika Utiina is a mitzvah of the Torah that says, basically, in short, when you see somebody's animal or your enemy's animal crouching under the weight of its burden, you have an obligation to help that person to unburden his animal and to help put the load back on the animal in a way that they can continue on their way, either lighten the load or help him lighten the load. But the person has an obligation not to ignore the fact that there's somebody in need of assistance. This is almost like Lahavdil, the Torah's version of AAA, in a sense of you're going along the way and you see someone on the road and they need help. And even the Torah says if it's your enemy, you cannot ignore someone else's plight. You must respond. So that's the basic premise. And you'll say, what does this have to do with the lesson in Likutei Moharan? It's unbelievable what Reb Noson does. So let's get started. According to that which was written in the Torah, meaning in Rebbe Nachman's lesson, these are the days of Chanukah, the days of Hodah, of thanksgiving, of giving thanks. Now, this halacha has nothing to do with Chanukah, but we're going to see the connections in a second. Tinyana, Beis Tinyana, Oz Hey. That one needs to draw the holiness of Shabbos into the 6 days of the week. Ki Shabbos bechinas bein, because Shabbos is a concept of sun, S-O-N, not S-U-N. Bechinas naicha le'ilayin v'tatayin. Shabbos is a concept of resting above and below. I'm going to explain all of this in a second, just as a background. Whereas the weekday are a concept of servitude, like an eved, a servant, a slave, the atzvos, and sadness, melancholy, depression. Utzrichim lahamshich hamenucha, and one needs to draw the menucha, the rest, the hasimcha, and the joy shall Shabbos, of Shabbos, limehachol, into the weekday. Again, I'm going to explain all this. I just want to read his introduction and translate it, and then we're going to go over it for a couple of minutes. And through this, there will be revealed the Achdus HaPashat. I'm going to try to only translate Achdus HaPashat once, because it's a phrase that comes up many times. Achdus HaPashut means the simple oneness of Hashem. And we're going to understand in the context that we're learning what that means. But what Rebbe Nachman teaches us is the process of drawing Shabbos into the weekday will reveal the Achdus HaPashut of Hashem, the simple oneness of Hashem. Achdus meaning oneness, and Pashut means simple oneness, no complexities as far as one versus many. There's that through this it comes to be revealed the Achdus HaPashut of Hashem Yisbarach. Because all the different types of activities flow from this Achdus HaPashut Yisbarach of Hashem, and this is incomprehensible to the human mind. Only through the use of emunah, that we draw through Shabbos, that we're able to draw the holiness and the joy of Shabbos, into the 6 days of the week. And this is a concept of the individual and the multitudes. Halacha karabim, that the halacha is like the many. Because when there are many who agree to one opinion, this is a concept of the pu'ulos mishtanos, the many different activities, the many different components, nichlolim, becoming incorporated, subsumed within the Echad HaPashut, and this is very valuable to Hashem Yisbarach. Ayin Sham, look over there. So now I'm going to go over, believe that, I'm going to go over what we just read and give it a little bit of a fuller explanation for anybody that's unfamiliar with the lesson as we learned it last time. In the lesson previously, we were talking about the way the Rebbe starts out is talking about Chanukah, and he talks about that Chanukah is Yemei Hodah, and thanksgiving, giving thanks to Hashem. We say Al Anisim, we praise and we thank Hashem on Chanukah. And a state of Hodah, a state of gratitude to Hashem, is synonymous with Olam Haba. How does the Rebbe know this? He proves it by saying that in Yemos HaMashiach, and when Mashiach comes, which is synonymous with Olam Haba, all of the karbanos of the Beis HaMikdash, all of the sacrifices will be canceled except for the Todah, except for the Korban Todah. And the Todah is brought when someone wants to express their gratitude to Hashem. So we see a strong correlation between the concept of being grateful, having an attitude of gratefulness, a perspective of greatness, of gratitude, associated with Olam Haba. That's how he starts out when he says, and the Rebbe also points out and teaches that Shabbos is also me'ein Olam Haba, is a reflection, is a not a component, but it mirrors Olam Haba. And Olam Haba and Shabbos is a state of rest. There's rest above in the spiritual realm. There's rest below in the physical realm. And in contrast to the weekday, on Shabbos, we have a relationship to Hashem like a father to a child, like a father to a son or a daughter. Whereas during the week, our relationship with Hashem is like an Eved. Why? Because during the week, the Chet of Adam Harishon was that mankind had to go out to work. Whereas on Shabbos, Hashem says, you don't have to do that anymore. Now I'm going to be close to you because I'm your father, and I want to be close to you, and I want to make you aware of who I am and our special relationship. That brings joy. So the menucha, when we talk about Shabbos menucha, we're not talking about sleeping for 14 hours. We're talking about menucha from avoda, rest from work, rest from the curse of Adam Harishon, rest from having to pursue our livelihood all week long. And on Shabbos, we transform ourselves from an Eved, from a slave, from a servant, to a son of royalty who does not work for a living. And the relationship with Hashem is enhanced. That brings joy. When you have such a close relationship with Hashem, that means that there's a spirit of simcha. Whereas during the week, where we're forced to go out and perform all kinds of malacha, all kinds of work, plowing, harvesting, sewing, building, writing, all types of different kinds of malacha, we're in a certain sense a little more spiritually distant from Hashem during the week than we were on Shabbos. And as a result of that, the weekday is more challenging. We don't have as direct access to Hashem's Kedusha as we did on Shabbos. And as a result of that, it's more challenging to stay positive, to stay focused, to feel connected to Hashem. Whereas on Shabbos, where Hashem is making himself so much more accessible, and we have a relationship with him as a father does to a son, and vice versa, there's joy because we're free from the burdens of our work, and we have a close relationship with Hashem, and that brings us joy. And what the Rebbe says in this Torah, in this lesson is, Rebbe Nachman, is that wouldn't it be wonderful if your weekday could be enhanced with the Kedusha, with the holiness and the bracha, the blessing of Shabbos? In other words, Shabbos doesn't have to remain within the confines of the calendar falling out on Shabbos and starting Bein Hashmashos or Shkia and then ending with Tzeitzach Uchavim. It doesn't have to end there. But rather, the Rebbe teaches us an amazing concept that when Shabbos is over, that's another beginning. That's a time when you take what you had on Shabbos, and even though it's slipping away in a certain sense because our status is changing, but we need not walk away from it entirely. And in fact, when we hold on to that Kedusha, to that bracha, and we bring it into our weekday, we have the ability to soften that feeling of avdus, that feeling of slavery, or that feeling of atzvus, of sadness that we encounter during the week. And this way a person can remain connected to Hashem, not only on Shabbos, but all week long. It's a tremendously powerful concept, and it takes time to get used to thinking about it this way, preparing yourself to experience Shabbos, and then being cognizant of taking that Kedusha with you into the week. The Rebbe also explains that the way to do it, in short, this isn't the time for this part of the lesson, but in short, the way to do it is through dibur, through speech. In other words, one of the primary components of Shabbos observance along with all the other malachos that a person is not permitted to do on Shabbos, but a very, very fundamental and primary component, and oftentimes one that is overlooked, and it's very hard sometimes to institute or to adopt this practice, even more than perhaps refraining from the malachos, is watching how we speak on Shabbos. Being careful about the words that we use, not being, God forbid, saying hurtful things to people on Shabbos. There are sources that say one should not reprimand children on Shabbos, and not speaking lashon hara, especially on Shabbos, and not talking about inyanei dechol, weekday topics. You might say, but I get such enjoyment out of discussing XYZ, politics or whatever it is. So a person has to ask themselves, I could get just as much pleasure from discussing those topics Motzei Shabbos and Sunday. Must I really discuss them right now? Or is there an additional pleasure that's awaiting me by experiencing Shabbos in a new way, by refraining from having these kinds of conversations that will reap so much more benefit and joy to me than even this discussion? But it takes some practice, and it takes some self-control, and it takes some awareness. But it's very, very much worth undertaking this endeavor of watching what you speak, how you speak on Shabbos. And the Rebbe says that it's speech that is the vehicle through which we can attach ourselves to the Kedusha on Shabbos and draw that Kedusha and bracha into the weekday. So by watching what we say on Shabbos, so that it's kosher l'Shabbos, we then connect to Shabbos, and then when we continue to be careful and mindful of our speech, even during the week. So now we can discuss the different topics we refrain from discussing on Shabbos not because we were imposed by, it was an imposition not to discuss them, but we refrained from that because we wanted so much more out of our Shabbos. I'm thinking of a few examples. If you went somewhere and you were going to be, let's say it was a restaurant and they had delicious food, and you came with a big bottle of Tabasco sauce, and when the waiter brought the food to the table, you poured Tabasco sauce all over it, and the waiter said, well, now you're not going to be able to taste any of the flavor of the food that we gave you. Why did you bother coming to the restaurant? Well, I like Tabasco sauce. Yeah, but it's now overshadowed the delicate flavors of the food. I know that's a silly example, but it just occurred to me to share that, because that's kind of like the idea, in a certain sense, that we refrain from something, even though it's challenging, even though it takes practice, because there's something better waiting for us when we do it. But we're so afraid to let go of what's familiar or what we already enjoy that it sometimes feels like an imposition. But if we don't look at it that way, but we look at it that we need to give it a chance, we need to work on it, let it happen, and then we'll see a new connection that we didn't have before that will actually be more enticing to us than what we thought previously. Okay, that's just my explanation of that concept. So Reb Nachman says, drawing the Kedusha of Shabbos into the weekday. Excuse me. So we had said that on Shabbos, a person's relationship with Hashem is very close. It's a father and a child. And we want to be able to discover Hashem no matter where we are in time, whether it's Shabbos or during the week, or whether we're at home, or whether we're at work, or whether we're engaged in learning, or whether we're engaged in a business activity. We want to be able to connect to Hashem. Hashem is referenced here as the Achdus HaPashut, the oneness of Hashem. And what Rebbe Nachman says is, when a person engages with the outside world, a person has to use a lot of different techniques, a lot of different actions, a lot of different malachos, and he's interacting with a lot of different people in a lot of different circumstances, and he's going to a lot of different places, even if he's not traveling far distances, he's certainly most likely traveling further than he would on an ordinary Shabbos. So a person is going lots of different places, experiencing lots of different things, interacting with lots of different people. And the concept there is that this is the Pu'ulos Mishtanos. These are the Pu'ulos Mishtanos. These are the very many types of actions. The world is comprised of Pu'ulos Mishtanos. Different actions, different environments, different people with different priorities and values and everything else. But what's incomprehensible to the human mind, which is what we read before, is the fact that as diverse as the world is, it all comes from one main source, Hashem. Now, in the human intellect, if you have one thing, that one thing, unless that one thing changes, it can't become many other things. And yet, what the Rebbe teaches us is that no matter how diverse the world seems to be, and no matter how different one thing seems to be from the other, whether it's one person from another, one experience from another, one moment of the day from another moment of the day. Oh, I was having such a wonderful morning and now I'm struggling getting through my afternoon. How could this be coming from the same source? But it does. It all comes from Hashem. Because essentially there is nothing but Hashem in reality. But from our perception, our perspective, we see things as fragmented and diverse. So the mission, in a certain sense, is to hang on to the Kedusha of Shabbos and to be mindful of the fact that we are searching for Hashem, even amongst the diversity of the world and the experiences that one has as a person goes about their life, interacting with them, their world, and the others around them. Additionally, the Rebbe points out that when it comes to halacha, there are many, many different opinions about practically everything. And that represents the Pu'ulos Mishtanos, the diversity. Now, again, I'm not saying diversity is bad. Diversity is wonderful. In fact, one of the things that I find so beautiful about Breslov and Hasidus is that Rebbe Nachman never wanted anybody to be shoehorned and pigeonholed into a particular style, whether it be dress, speech, even nusach hatfilah. If you're Ashkenazi, you stay Ashkenazi. If you're Sephardi, you stay Sephardi. Not a problem. Because Rebbe Nachman appreciated that each person is a unique world unto him or herself. And you can't squelch that, and you can't squeeze everybody into the same box. And not only that, not only can't it be done, but it would deny the world of the unique character and characteristic of this particular person. Granted, halacha needs to always be learned and observed, and mitzvahs always need to be done and learned about. So that's a baseline. But aside from that, we celebrate the diversity of all kinds of people, or all kinds of Jews especially. The kind of diversity we're talking about here, though, is the kind of diversity that distracts us from Avodas Hashem. it's not that we don't appreciate others' perspectives or other people's contributions. No, chas v'shalom, we appreciate all of that. That's what makes the world as fulfilling and robust and as it is. But what we're talking about here with pu'ulos mishtanos is what the Rebbe refers to as the reshus harabim, meaning the danger that lies within an environment that has the capacity to, God forbid, draw us away from sincere avodas Hashem. It's if anybody's experienced, doing something and then getting discouraged, where does that sense of discouragement come from? If somebody feels that someone else is laughing at them because they're wearing a yarmulke or tzitzis, or they're going to daven mincha, or they only eat kosher food, that could have a negative effect. That could be discouraging to a person. So when we talk about diversity, we're talking about the kind of diversity that draws someone away from avodas Hashem, or that even could lessen somebody's hislava, someone's passion for avodas Hashem. So what the Rebbe is saying here is that we have to be mindful of the fact that, considering all that the world has to offer, there's lots of good in it, and that's why we go and interact with the world. But there's also dangers and pitfalls, and that the Rebbe refers to as the pu'ulos mishtanos. And within that kind of an environment, our job, our mission, is to find the kedusha and the achdus of Hashem, and to return home the following week for Shabbos, basically in one piece, so that we can bring home the wonderfulness that we found due to our interactions with the world during the week. We can bring that home and enhance our Shabbos, because someone who toils before Shabbos, says the Gemara, is able to eat on Shabbos. Obviously, someone who hasn't prepared is not going to be ready and is not going to have what to eat. That also means, in a spiritual sense, in an intellectual sense, someone who has been on guard during the week in his or her interactions with the world will be primed to have an enhanced following Shabbos as well. So when it comes to halacha, there's lots of different opinions, but ultimately, what does Hashem want? Ultimately, Hashem wants achdus. He wants togetherness, because Hashem is one. Hashem is achdus hapashat. As a result of that, a major principle in halacha is that everyone's entitled to their opinion, but when it comes down to it, lots of times the rule is we take a vote, and the vote gives us the majority opinion, and that's the way the halacha is followed. And the Rebbe says that this is very fitting, because achdus hapashat means that there's a capacity to take very, very diverse things and understand that it comes from one source. So too here, when there's a difference of opinion on halacha, all those people, all those Tanayim Amarayim, or Rishonim, Achronim, or Poskim, all of them understood the Gemara and still, or the halacha, and still they came away with a different opinion, based on who they were, based on their understanding, based on their emphasis, based on their makeup. They understood it a certain way. They may not be wrong, but nevertheless, the halacha follows, in most cases, the majority opinion. Okay, this is the framework. I know we spent a little bit longer on the explanation than I anticipated, so I may have to divide this halacha up between 2 nights. I'll see how quickly it goes. But I wanted to give as clear and concise a description of the Torah as I could. So that was basically it in a nutshell. Let's continue. Paragraph Bays. V'zeh b'chinas ma shehizir b'yoser eitz mitzvahs azov ta'azov. This is the idea that we're particularly warned with regard to the mitzvah of azov ta'azov. The word azov literally most of the time means to abandon. But in this context, Rashi says, the word means to assist, to help, like Ezra, to help. When you see your enemy's animal bowing under its burden, you shall surely help him. Azov ta'azov, you shall surely help him. Excuse me. Shiga azov. But the word azov ta'azov, the word aziva means to abandon. So what does the Targum say? Shiyazov hasina shebalibo al chavero. A person needs to abandon his hatred for his friend that he's harboring in his heart. So the pasuk actually speaks on many different levels. One level is you shall surely assist your friend or your enemy, even your enemy. Pasuk is talking about an enemy. But on a deeper level, the pasuk is saying, abandon the hatred in your heart that you have for that person and help him. Don't allow the hatred in your heart to prevent you from helping him unburden his animal. And unburden with him. Kamosha Kosav, as it says, as in the pasuk in Shemos, ki sira chamor sonacha, when you see the donkey of your enemy, rovates tachas maso, crouching under its burden, v'chaldalta ma'azovla, are you going to refrain, according to the first way we explained it, are you going to refrain from helping him? Azov ta'azov imo, you shall surely help him. That's how Rashi translates the pasuk. The Targumo, but the Targum translates it, Mishpat tishbok ma shebelibach alohi. You shall totally divest yourself and get rid of what's in your heart about him. The tough utfarek ime, and you shall unload with him. Similarly, our Chachamim say, the Gemara in the Gemara, that this is the main mitzvah of unburdening and reloading the animal. It's not concrete in the sense of just helping the animal. There's an internal process that a person has to undergo when he sees his enemy's animal struggling. You're driving down the road and you see someone you don't like, and they have a flat tire and they're struggling to put it up, change their tire. Do you stop, or do you just pretend you don't see and you keep going? Says the Targum, get rid of the hatred that is lying in your heart. That's why Hashem put that person right there in front of you, to give you that opportunity to get rid of that hatred in your heart. Ki ikar kol hayasurim, and now we're going even deeper. There's Reb Noson. Ki ikar kol hayasurim, because the main source of all suffering, sheyesh adam, that a person has, nichvedas hamasai, comes from the burden of his pekel, of his package. So I want to describe something that I discussed in my Elizabeth Chabura, that there's a difference between pain and suffering. A lot of times we use the terminology synonymously, but in our context, we're going to draw a distinction. Pain is the feeling that someone has as a reaction to a stimulus. So a person stubs their toe, they say, ouch, that hurt. They felt pain. Suffering in our context is going to be defined as a person who is consumed with the thought of the experience that they had, that they relive it over and over again. And not only that, but it gets stronger and stronger and stronger to the point where it almost becomes debilitating to the person in a certain sense, even if it's only to the extent that it is a distraction to the person when they want to do other things, and that those thoughts keep popping up about their unpleasant experience that they had. This is a heavy burden. These negative and hateful feelings are burdens that we're carrying around on our own backs all the time. And says Reb Noson, this is the ikar of all the Yisurim. This is the bulk of all of the suffering that we experience. Again, not that a person won't experience pain, but pain may not necessarily always be associated with suffering. I heard about Tzvi Aryeh Rosenfeld when he was suffering greatly towards the end of his life. He sometimes would cry out in pain, and one time he was able to stop, or maybe when the pain subsided enough, and he said to his family, "Don't you think for a second that I'm not besimcha. I am besimcha," because he was suffering in pain, but he did not relinquish his grasp on joy. And the two are capable of coexisting at the same time. I know that's a little redundant for anybody who's being careful with my verbiage. And the reason why this is happening, that a person is suffering from this burden of hatred that they're carrying around in their hearts, is exactly because they're not following through with what we described before about the idea of bringing Shabbos into your weekday. In a nutshell, just in case there's anybody who's listening to this point and then they are going to stop listening for whatever reason, I'll just say the main idea is that if a person would be focused so intently on Shabbos, and then even after Shabbos, even when they have other distractions going on, but they work hard at it and they do better each time, but to the extent that a person can remain focused on the relationship that they have with Hashem and the simcha that relationship brought that person, and the menucha that the person experienced from that relationship, if a person is able to maintain that focus, then all the other stuff is just the small stuff. Then you would be able to easily overcome a lot of the trials and tribulations that the world has to offer. Again, it doesn't come without practice. This is not a quick fix. These are principles, but the principles, when applied to whatever extent a person can, never go work to the point where it's that the working itself is burdensome on you, God forbid. But to the extent that you can helpfully and positively work on these ideas and integrate them over a period of time, you will see, in not a long period of time, you will start seeing growth. And over a longer period of time, you will see a significant growth. The reason why the person is suffering is because they were not able to properly bind all the different kinds of activities that they experience, or that they do, or that they perform. They were unable to successfully and completely bind those things to the Achdus HaPashut of Hashem. In other words, they experienced things in their life and they did not draw it back to Hashem. they attributed it to whatever else was going on, or they attributed it wrongly to Hashem. Hashem is, of course, always dealing with us through chesed. Because the person is not drawing the Kedusha of Shabbos into the 6 days of the week. Because all suffering that a person has, God forbid, beguf, benefesh, umamon, whether it's in his body, whether it's in his soul, or whether it's even financially, God forbid, kulam heim bechinas maso. This is all a kind of a burden. Why are they a burden? Because who wants Yisurim? Who wants to suffer? Who wants unpleasant experiences? Nobody. Nobody wants to have, God forbid, a car accident. Nobody wants that. Who in their right mind would ask for such a thing? So when such a thing happens, our reaction is, oh, why did that have to happen to me? Why did it have to happen now? Why did it happen? We have lots of questions, and we struggle with it. And it becomes a burden. Because the struggle makes the experience feel like a burden. And it's feeling like a burden because it's the exact opposite of what I wanted to happen. I didn't want that to happen. And when it happened, I'm upset about it. And it's a burden to me. I don't want to deal with it. Wow, just this thought alone. If somebody could internalize this thought and apply it to even one element in their life, let alone so many different ones, they would feel such menuchas hanefesh in their heart. A person experiences something. It's keneged deratzon. They don't want to experience that thing. So it feels like a burden. But what the Rebbe and Reb Noson are teaching us is it needn't have to feel that way. It needn't have that effect on you. It's like a heavy burden on him. And all of these things, all of these different yisurim, troubles and tribulations, are like the pu'ulos mishtanos that we discussed before. Because he's not trying to reveal ulaha'ir bahem and to accentuate within them b'chinas achdus hapashut, the achdus hapashut of Hashem. So because a person doesn't know, or maybe even refuses to try to find the achdus hapashut in these different experiences, because of that, this experience that the person is having becomes a weighty burden on them. You see the connection? Instead of the animal of, it's unbelievable, quite frankly. Instead of the animal referred to in the pasuk and the animal belonging to your friend or your enemy, what we've done is we've turned the tables. You're the person and you're the animal. You're carrying the burden. And by carrying this burden, you're your own worst enemy in a certain sense. But the good news is you have the ability to totally change that relationship with yourself and get rid of the burden. And why wouldn't you? First of all, it's a mitzvah. If you're traveling along the road and you see even your enemy struggling with its animal struggling under its burden, you're mitzvah, you're commanded to unload it. So even if somebody would look at themselves that way, unbelievably, they would have to stop and help themselves and unburden themselves. And especially if they don't look at themselves like their own worst enemy, then certainly a person would want to help themselves and unburden themselves. The correlation to the context of the pasuk is unbelievable. Because when we don't engage in this process of finding Hashem in the things that happen to us and our interactions with the world, etc. And things become a heavy burden. That's when all of these different things become so burdensome, so heavy, so they become so many. And things are not running smoothly. Things are not running the way we want them to. The sharsham, from their very root. In other words, there's something wrong. The reason why you're experiencing a burden is because there's something wrong. If there wouldn't be something wrong, you would be happy. You wouldn't be experiencing trouble and strife and things that are burdensome. Because it's from this, Reb Noson's just bringing it full circle, but it's from this lack of approach, of applying Shabbos to your weekday, to your life, in a very real sense, that this is what's creating the Yisurim. This is what's making it, the experiences that we have, intolerable. Because all Yisurim, all trials and tribulations, are a concept of machlokes. Machlokes is dispute. Now, before, remember we said when it comes to halacha, you could have many different opinions, right? But ultimately, what does Hashem want? He wants achdus. He wants everybody to decide what is the halacha. What day is it going to be when you have witnesses that come to testify about the new moon? There's only going to be one day for Rosh Hashanah for everybody. That's it. One day, that's it. So if there's different opinions about different things, no. In the end, we can debate it, but in the end, we take a vote and we go according to the majority. So Yisurim, trials and tribulations, suffering, come from machlokas. It's not that they come from machlokas, but it's a sister concept to machlokas, dispute. Because these things are coming from fundamentally different places. Keneged das ha'adam, and they're running contrary to the will of the person, and therefore it's creating a conflict. Sha'adam rotza sheyakach kirtzono, because a person wants things to go a certain way, the way he wants things to go. She is not lo kaseder. Everything has to go the way I would like it to go. I want my train to come on time, and I want my salary to be a certain level, and I want X, Y, Z. And as long as everything seems to fit into the, my parameters, then everything is great. Unfortunately, life doesn't always work that way, as we all already know. And all of these other powers, forces, events, experiences, thoughts, people, etc. The list goes on forever. They stand against him and they argue with him. And they do things that he doesn't want to have happen or to do. And to the greater and greater extent that all of these things run contrary to what he really wants, and let's say all he wants is real goodness, so that makes it even worse. I'm trying to do the right thing, and this guy won't let me. I'm trying to do the right thing, and I can't because of X, Y, Z. I wanted to come home in time to daven with a minyan, but the train got delayed. Wasn't that a good thing? Wasn't I supposed to come home in time for a minyan? Did Hashem not want me to daven with a minyan? Of course Hashem wanted me to daven with a minyan. So, but to the greater extent that all of these things run contrary to his ratzon, to his desire, the suffering becomes greater and greater. We've all felt, on some level, disconsonance with our lives. And sometimes it's a small thing, and sometimes it's a really big thing. Sometimes we are quick to forget about it and move on. Sometimes it takes time to process, and then we can cope with it. And other times it just seems to stagnate in the wrong place. So to the extent that these things run keneged our ratzon, that causes us yisurin. All of this flows, says Rebbe Noson, from a blemish of what we were referring to before. Shalo hishtado. What does that mean? What does that mean? It's all a blemish from what we discussed before. First of all, am I calling the victim who's suffering blemish? No, chas v'sholom. No, that's not what I'm saying. When Reb Noson says it's from a pagam of what we learned before, what he's saying is that the person is not maximizing the potential opportunity that they have to relate to their environment in a different way by integrating the concept of what we said before. There's no guideline here that you must do it 1, 2, 3 in that order, and then shazam, everything works out. You internalize the concept of Shabbos and weekday and pulos mishtanos and achdus hapashik, and you become better and better and better at seeing the world through that vision, through that perspective, and finding Hashem, the achdus hapashik, in the pulos mishtanos. And then as you grow beautifully, it flowers into the ability to very, very adept with finesse to handle a wider and wider swath of different experiences. That's what it means. So I didn't want this to sound harsh, because I don't believe he means it in a harsh way. But the words mean shapagam, all of this is born out of the fact that this person was pagam. He blemished this concept before, meaning he's not using it. He's not taking advantage of it. That he's not making an effort. Well, for some people, they didn't know there was such a thing as a continuing Shabbos into the weekday till now. So don't blame yourself. Just see if you can be able to start adopting the perspective, and then you'll see amazing things start to happen. So because he's not making an effort to draw the simcha, the joy and the rest of Shabbos, limehachol, into the weekday. Meaning not just into the weekday, Sunday through Friday, into the weekday, meaning into all the different kinds of experiences that a person has, into the weekday experiences contrasted to the Shabbos experience, meaning into the experiences. If Shabbos is I'm Hashem's child and we have such a close, loving relationship, then what weekday means is that a person doesn't feel that they have a close, loving relationship at that moment with Hashem. So if a person is not trying to hold on to the holiness and the joy of and the rest of Shabbos, what it means is they're overlooking the chance, even now, to uncover a deep relationship with Hashem that would bring them joy and rest, peace of mind, peace of heart, even if they're in the trenches of dealing with something very challenging. We talked about this among the many things. Okay. Ki kfar, ki kafi haseder, shenimshach achias me'achad hapashut, l'cha hapulas mishtanos, because because of the structure of this principle of drawing the life of Hashem, achdus hapashut, into the Pu'ulas Mishtanos, into all these different types of things. Roy Shisnayag Hakol Seder. So when a person does that, then it is fitting that things will go Keseder. Why? Because from Hashem Yisbarach, there is never any reduction in goodness. As I said before, Hashem deals with us with chesed. Even now, meaning before Mashiach comes, where we say two brachos, Hatov HaMeitiv, thanking Hashem for the good, and Dayan HaEmes. And Hashem is the true judge. We make two brachos on good things, quote unquote, and bad things, quote unquote. When Mashiach comes, we'll understand that there is only good, and there always was only good. And Hashem does interact with us only with chesed, kindness, and he always did, and he always will. It's just not obvious to us now. And that's why the Rebbe says that the way to extricate ourselves from this weekday mindset, this pre-Mashiach, pre-Olam Haba mindset, this not Shabbos, but weekday mindset, the way to extricate ourselves from that is through Emunah. Because through Emunah, we can attach ourselves to Hashem, even when we don't understand. Emunah is beyond a person's logic, a person's seichel. And Hashem Yisbarach created his world for good, to do good, to bestow kindness. In order that the goodness from his Achdus HaPashut should flow to all the Pu'ulos Mishtanos, meaning all the different peoples of the world, all the different situations, all the expanse of time and history. To each and every action, that it will be fitting and that things will be keseder, they'll flow in the proper order, be in order, and it'll be l'tova, for good. Rak machmas shahakol nivra b'shvil habechira shel ha'adam. But because Hashem wanted to create an environment where we have an opportunity to serve him with free choice. Because of that, shekfi amunaso, the shlema, through complete amunah, u'kefi ma'asav, and through his actions, that will be the way a person is able to draw the Achdus HaPashut into all the different activities. So in other words, Hashem wanted to create the world that, not robots, not even malachim. The malachim, most of the malachim don't have any bechira at all. They are created to do what they do them, and then they either continue to exist or they don't exist. They could be compared to a robot in a sense, because they don't have bechira. Humanity has an incredible tool called free choice. And it's a gift, but it's also a very big challenge, because in order to give us bechira, Hashem had to obscure the reality of himself and give us true choice. If we sensed Hashem 100%, we would never do anything wrong. We would only do what was correct. We would not have bechira. And that's not the world that Hashem wanted, because he wants to reward us ultimately in Olam Haba for making qualitative choices, or if we've made unqualitative choices, at least for doing tshuva on those choices. So in order to do that, Hashem hid himself and gave us the opportunity to serve him with emunah, to the extent that a person can energize his emunah and find Hashem even in the world with emunah, by reminding oneself, no, this also comes from Hashem, and Hashem is kulo chesed. By reminding oneself and building emunah, a person is capable of identifying the achdus hapashut, meaning Hashem, even amongst the pu'ulas mishtanos, the diversity of the world. But because a person has bechira, it could, God forbid, go the other way as well. A person may not necessarily engage in that activity and arrive at the correct destination. Therefore, the main solution, the main advice is through Shabbos. How precious, after learning this, are we going to look at our Shabbos? We're going to be so inspired to try not to speak about mundane things on Shabbos. They can wait. They can wait for the next day. It's okay. Call a friend after Shabbos. Discuss things all you want, but not on Shabbos. Shabbos, we want to be more careful. We want to get the most we can out of Shabbos. Because then it's resting and pleasure, comfort. And through experience of Shabbos and drawing it into the weekday, then you're going to be able to start seeing Hashem. And then everything is going to go keseder. And what I think that Reb Noson means by that, my own opinion is, of course, that doesn't mean that everything is going to go the way that I want it to go. Because if that's the case, then that falls into the category we've already discussed, when things are kirtsono or kirtsoni, like my desire. And sometimes things will go that way, and sometimes they will not go that way. Rather, what I think he means here was by the Oz Misnag HaKol Keseder, that everything then, when he starts using emunah and drawing Shabbos into the weekday, everything will go Keseder. What I think he means is that you will see the Hashem behind what you thought was going contrary to your desire, and you will say, yes, Hashem, I can even connect to you in this experience as well, and that is also a demonstration of your chesed in my life. And that to me is even greater than the ratzon that I had for the thing that didn't happen. That's an amazingly, we're going to stop here because I don't want to rush and I don't want to try to keep it to an hour generally. But Baruch Hashem, for this semester, I have 5 different halachos to share with you. Very, very different topics. But hearkening back to different components, either the same or different components from Rebbe Nachman's lesson. And I'm sure that anybody who is listening to this halacha, who already knew or listened to the presentation on the lesson from the Likutei Moharan, could never have thought that this is the direction this was going to go, or to apply it here. And that speaks to the genius of Reb Noson. That when Rebbe Nachman was talking, he was able to hear such applicability to so many different areas. And I want to bless everybody that first of all, that you should have a good Shabbos. Should try to see the Kedusha and the rest, the Naicha, the Menucha of Shabbos, the Menucha from work, the relationship that you have with Hashem, the joy that you can feel. Be protective of it. Don't give it away. Don't give it away in a conversation about a mundane topic that can wait for another day. Don't give it away by speaking lashon hara or harsh words on Shabbos. Sometimes it's not easy because, we're around. We see people. It's tempting. Whatever it is. And then when your Shabbos is over, take what you experience on Shabbos and don't let go of it. Hang on to it as hard as you can. And continue to look for Hashem in your life all week long. And hang on to the next Shabbos, where you can bring all those experiences of finding, yeah, I found Hashem on Tuesday when I interacted with so-and-so, and I had my emunah, and I was thinking of Hashem and His chesed, and that experience will help enhance your following Shabbos. And then you can, level by level, go up and up and up. And also try to keep in mind the theme of this halacha, which was prika uti'ina, the concept of unloading your enemy's animal from its burden, and the correlation he made to our own selves, unloading the burden off of our own selves, and how we do have the capacity to unload that burden. We can let go of hatred. We can let go of feeling judgmental or hurt from the experiences that we've had in our life. And sometimes it's challenging to do that, but we need to, if we work on it, and we need to work on it, slowly but surely we will grow. So, Baruch Hashem, thank you so much for joining me. And if anybody has any comments or questions, you can give a couple of minutes and see if anybody types something. Hopefully I know how to work this. And if not, if somebody wants to share something with me via email, feel free. Baruch Hashem. Ashkayach Yankel for joining me. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Daryl, wow. Good Shabbos. Yeah. Somebody posted a link. Oh, Charles Newman. It's so hard to read this print. I don't know why. I'll see if we can make it a little bit darker. Thank you so much for finding the text. Yeah, and you can follow along. And, the idea is that the reason why I'm reading it is because I want everybody to have access to the source. I don't want you to just know my opinion. If I didn't read it inside, you'd say, where is he getting this? But this way you have a tool, and you have my perspective, and you can have your own. You can share it. You could share it with your family, you could share it with me. And for you, that unique perspective that you have is just as valid as my perspective. This is an unbelievable tool the Rebbe has given us. Okay. Ashkaya for everybody. Thank you so much. Have a good Shabbos.